Hey, welcome to another episode of MJ and Kate on. And today we're going to be talking about National Alzheimer Disease Awareness Month. And this month we are have a special guest with us, and that special guest is going to be Mark Applegate, and he's with Senior Age, the new Southwest Missouri Office of Aging. Good morning, Kate.
Hey, good morning. So it's just going to be that I don't have anyone watching on my channels, which is fine.
Okay,
It
so
says error
we can
when I tried it. You can't add apparently in the middle of a live stream, which
in the
makes
middle of a
total
live
sense.
stream. This makes sense. Okay, so we'll push them out later today. So we'll get to that and show that to you. So let's welcome to the show. We have Mark Applegate, and Mark, tell us a little bit about how you and I are connected.
We're stepbrothers, and we're Christian brothers, and we're friends.
Yeah.
All the above.
So I'm trying to get you up here so we can see you. There you go.
There we go.
So
Not much
how?
better on the radio.
So let's just jump right into the conversation here. And so we were talking about that this is Alzheimer Disease Awareness Month, and you and I were just talking offline there about what is the difference between Alzheimer's and versus dementia.
Absolutely, and it's probably the most commonly misunderstood piece of the puzzle in this whole deal. Dementia is kind of like cancer, and Alzheimer's disease is kind of like breast cancer. So dementia is the umbrella term that covers all of them. It's the overarching thing. There's a bunch of different types of dementia. Probably, I don't know the exact number because they actually find new ones sometimes. There's a bunch of them. Alzheimer's disease is the most common one. About 2/3 of the cases are Alzheimer's. The second most common is called vascular dementia, and that's a really common one too. It's probably a little less than a third of the cases. It's involving little brain vessels. There's also a type that my mother has called mixed dementia. Mixed dementia is a combination of a couple of them. So it's she has Alzheimer's disease and she's got vascular dementia, and she was diagnosed early enough that she's technically got early onset Alzheimer's, which is the cutoff line when they call something early onset is 65 years old or younger. And she was diagnosed at exactly 65, and she probably had it before then.
And so Mark's talking about his mother, who is currently being treated for Alzheimer's, or
Sure.
I guess would be the best way to describe it. So tell us a little bit about your journey with her.
So in 2009, she had some struggles, behavioral health, mental health wise, struggling with depression and with anxiety. And of course, that was during the Great Recession. So there was also a lot of world issues going on. She had lost her parents, my grandparents, not that many years before. So she was kind of struggling a little bit, not a little bit, a lot. So she kind of wandered a little bit for a while, and it got a little bit dangerous. So my stepdad took her to her primary care physician, who recommended we take her to the Marion Center, which is a behavioral health hospital, and have a diagnosis. So she did that, and she ended up staying there for about a week. And when she came out, she was in much better shape. She was on meds that helped with the depression. She had some strategies to help with the mental health aspects of it, and she really came out doing really well. And she'd been a very highly functioning person her whole life. That wasn't kind of a common problem for her. It was kind of spontaneous. But one of the things she told us as she left then is, in addition to what she has, she also has what they called a mild form of dementia. We thought at the time, okay, the only reference point we had for dementia is my grandmother, her mom, died with dementia, but she also had congestive heart failure, and it was kind of we were believing a lot of the kind of misnomers about it. You get to be 80, everyone's got it or something, and we know that definitely is not the case. My dad's a great example of that. He's 81 now and sharp as a tack. So I mean, it isn't a normal part of aging. So so it kind of fell off our radar. So we didn't really have really a reference point. She didn't fit any of the stereotypes. She wasn't having a tremendous amount of memory problems. She wasn't struggling doing the everyday things that we could tell, and all that. So I kind of fell off the radar for quite a while, actually. Of course, meanwhile, I would visit with Mom on the phone almost every day. I'd visit with Dad almost every day, and but you can't tell things on the phone. Sometimes you can tell in person. It's kind of logical if you think about it. If you're calling someone on the phone and you ask them, "Hey, what do you do next Thursday?" and there's a pause that takes 20 seconds. For all you know, on a phone, they may be doing dishes or whatever, watching TV at the same time, not really paying super close attention. But I think looking back on it, a lot of those pauses were her trying to get her mind wrapped around the words that were involved in the question and stuff. So she'd probably struggle with it progressively during that time quite a bit. But about 5 years ago, I guess now, in that range, it started getting quite a bit worse. She would make, most common thing she would do is repeat story. And you'll hear this a lot when you do caregiving or do support groups with Alzheimer's, which I have a couple of those I'm involved in. She'd repeat the same question or statement 2 or 3 times in the same conversation, just kind of erratically. Or she would lose track of words, kind of like I'm about to do right now for some reason, But we didn't pick up on it real well until it got kind of worse and worse. And I talked to my siblings, and it's like, Mom's kind of struggling. Have you noticed that lately? And, oh yeah, I noticed that too. I was going to ask you about that, that kind of sort of thing. So on Thanksgiving season, I guess it'd be 5 years ago now, this time of year, we had a big shindig at her house, with the whole turkey and the whole bit, and this is my method of diagnosing. And I said, hey, mom's a real good sport. I said, Mom, show my kids what it would look like if I got in trouble, because I think I do it exactly like you did it. You know how you say first middle last name, you get here right now, and kind of do this thing here, kind of. And she's like, oh no, and I said, oh come on, you're a good sport, do it, And we asked her a couple more times, and Pam said, oh, do it for me then instead, because my kids say the same thing about me, As it turns out, we figured out that the reason she wouldn't do that is she couldn't remember my first, middle, and last name anymore. At that point, we had the oh crap, deer in the headlights moment. What's going on here? This is not computing and not fitting the stereotype of what we think dementia is. She's only 65, or well, I guess she's about 70, 71, or 70-ish around then. And of course, the reference point is my dad. Who's he can remember stats from Cardinals teams of the 30s. It didn't compute for us. So we started noticing very shortly after that several things. She'd make mistakes in stories that she'd told her whole life, about how people died completely wrong. And so we contacted her primary care physician. My sister was already the power of attorney, and had her do the what they call the mini mental exam, which is just the standard thing they give seniors a lot of times when they get to be. It depends on the doctor. Between 65 and 70, they'll start giving the exam every visit. Just the standard count backwards by 7 from 100. And draw a clock that's 11, 15. And there's like 4 or 5 different things. And it's a scale. They do it's a cognitive scale. She failed it badly, and I was there watching, and just, it was eye opening, and she, unfortunately, from then declined pretty rapidly, to the point where it wasn't safe on a highway, probably 100 yards from a major highway in our hometown, and adjoining it was Main Street, so they live in a really busy area, and it wasn't safe. She would wander, leave the house, and just kind of go for a walk like we used to call it. But she would wander because she'd forget how to get back, or she'd drop her phone or whatever, So it got to the point inside the house too that she was becoming unsafe. She would put things in food that didn't belong in food, like marbles. She would just various things. Electrical things in the house that she'd try to mess with that she could hurt herself on. And we couldn't, me and my siblings couldn't ourselves care for her 24/7. My stepdad is can do, he did quite a bit and did the best he could, but he was kind of incapable because he was very medical minded, you know. So we had her placed in a nursing facility this time of year, 4 years ago, I guess now. And she's there's, depending on how you look at the scale, there's like either 3 or 7, depending on which scale you use, kind of levels of dementia, how far along you are in it, stages, I guess you would say. She's at the end stage, is what they would call it, or the 7th stage or whatever. In the hospice world, it's 7E or whatever the lowest you can possibly be without being dead, you know, pretty much. But currently she sleeps 22 hours a day. She seems happy. She doesn't have pain that's obvious, at least. There's no grimacing. And I mean, she is, I hate to say she's a blank slate cognitively, but she didn't communicate really at all. But she does, I still feel like when you walk in the room and take your mask off, she can still tell that I'm someone that's in her tribe or in her team, you know. So I feel like she still knows me, even though she doesn't have a word for it or whatever. So I can go with that in my heart, you know. I don't know if it's true or not. Who knows? There's no way of knowing what's inside someone else's mind, period. So, and that's kind of where we're at. She's been in hospice for a couple of years now. They did unfortunately take her off hospice, which is for a short amount of time here, but she's going back on now. She's had some seizures, which probably are tied to the vascular part of her dementia, the kind of like the TIAs, the mini stroke type things. But beyond that, I mean, she, if you go to my littlecornbread.com, there's some videos in there. She played the piano since she was in her single digits age-wise. I don't know how long. Always played it by memory. I don't know if she could read music. She probably could, but wasn't necessary to have it because she had such a library and memorized, you know. And even after she was in a nursing home a couple of years, she was still playing the piano. Even when she was almost nonverbal, she's still playing the piano, doing it real well. I've got some great videos of her playing the piano with a bunch of the little ladies that were practically nonverbal that would suddenly be able to sing and stuff, you know, and it was really cool. So if you get a chance to see that, you'll get a kick out of it. There's one in particular she's playing, I believe it's Blessed Assurance. I forget which of the old hymns it is. Relish of her playing and singing, she stops playing with one of her hands and gives me the okay symbol, and it's just, when you see that, it'll just melt you. It's amazing. It was kind of her way, I think, of telling me it's going to be okay.
So through this process, I think that's when you started digitalcornbread.com as a way for you to sort of blog your own journey, and then talk a little bit about how that sort of has developed into you helping others.
Bread was it started as a bunch of Facebook posts, you know, because I'd go daily. I was able to go 7 days a week after work, you know, and I would just write a summary of how it went, you know, and stuff. And I thought, well, this is too good of information to share with people that only share with my 5,000 Facebook followers, that 4,000 of them are probably bots that don't exist, you know, or whatever. So I copy and pasted them into a WordPress blog, and I now have 10,000 followers in there I've written 800 articles, something like that in it. It's the means I use to it's kind of a catharsis to me. It's kind of it's kind of the way Mom would have handled it if she was in the same situation. I kind of remember being in that situation with Grandma, although she was not tech person even back then. She was an advocate. She would find ways to help other people, and that's how she kind of deal with the sadness of stuff like this, you know. So that's my method of dealing with it, kind of, is to try to advocate where I can. So I do things for the Alzheimer's Association, a whole bunch of different things. That's kind of my method of venting, except not in a negative way, in a positive way. I have 2 different caregiver support groups. One of them is Zoom. In fact, if any of your folks have a need for it, we do a Zoom. It's actually tonight at 4:30. It's the 3rd Tuesday of every month, but it's 4:30 Central Time. We do an in-person caregiver support group right after that. I do I'm part of AIM, AIM, which is the Alzheimer's Impact Movement. What that is their advocacy wing, where they're completely nonpartisan. It's about as nonpartisan as it gets as an organization, but they contact legislators and fill them in on what the deal is, because most legislators really don't have a clue. And the association's asking for billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars, actually probably hundreds of billions of dollars, because research is expensive. So I'm involved with that with my U.S. representative. I'll starting this next term with Mark Applegate is his name. Um, let's see, there's several different kind of things that I do with them. Anyway, it's just kind of part of my process of kind of pre-grieving, and I'm a fixer and a doer. I'm a computer programmer. I'm a computer repair person, IT manager type by trade. So I'm kind of a fixer anyway. That's kind of my way of trying to fix. That's one of the things I probably could bring up too, real quick. I'm involved in clinical trials, and I definitely recommend people get involved in clinical trials of Alzheimer's, because they're actually making advances, decent advances these days. There's a website that Alzheimer's Association has called Trial Match. If you just Google Alzheimer's Trial Match, it'll get you right to their link. And it's kind of like a dating website or something. You type in a bunch of demographic information, a bunch of interests in this and that, and it will pair you to clinical trials related to Alzheimer's. The ones that would hit your comfort zone. They don't do brain biopsies and stuff like that, but I just pretty much left it open to them, and I've done 20 now, if I remember right. And anything from as basic as cognitive tests and quizzes to, I think I've done about 10 MRIs now. I've done probably 10 PET scans now. I've done 3 lumbar punctures, which is a terrible name for something. It's where they withdraw cerebrospinal fluid, which is kind of the main thing they have to use to examine the brain, because they don't dig into your brain to test things. They use this fluid that kind of interacts with your brain that kind of works the same for them to test. Things like that. So I would definitely recommend people get involved with, if you have the time and the desire to try to get involved with clinical trials.
And I think you mentioned earlier something we were talking about prevention, that if there's some types of preventions that are if you start early, that might help with the Alzheimer's.
Yeah, absolutely. Any cure that they ever come up with is going to depend on finding out early and starting on meds early. So part of the idea behind that is that they've, like Washington University's got a blood test. They've just pretty much got perfected now. I think it's not widely available yet, but it's going to be there, where they can tell you at like at our age, in our 20s, right? That one of these days at the current pace you're at, you're going to have Alzheimer's when you hit 65 or 70 if you don't do blank, 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 and blank. So the blank, 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 and blank are the things that you do for prevention, because there's kind of a tipping point. The lady that wrote the movie Still Alice, Lisa Genova, refers to it as the tipping point. You have this stuff, this cause, whatever maybe it's the plaques and tangles, like you've read about. Maybe it's that plus something else. Who knows? You have a tipping point that, as long as you stay below this tipping point, and whatever this cause is, you may have the disease, but if you let it go too far, then you cross that tipping point. It's a point of no return. You start progressing and get worse and worse and worse, and between 1 and 20 years later, you die of it. But this prevention piece of it is the pre-tipping point. They figure, well, depending on which study you look at, 33 to 40% is the most common range. I've seen as high as 50 or 60% of cases that people have dementia, some form of dementia, that could have been completely avoided. They could have prevented it if they would have. The things like that they need to do, though, are a pretty big ask. You need to exercise. You need to manage your blood pressure, your blood sugar. I mean, none of it's hard stuff, but it's it's the things that American society doesn't do very well. You know, you need to manage your weight, you need to sleep an adequate amount, you need to manage your stress level. All the things that basically that we do bad right now, you need to not do bad anymore. You know, I mean, so like when we tried to get people to stop smoking, we put a picture of a cancerous lung on the outside of the cigarette box, and they still smoked them. So we're not great at this as a culture, but eventually the cigarette thing started whittling down, and I think if you knew at 25 or 30, hey, your likelihood of getting this disease is really high if you don't get something lined up here in the next 15, 20, 30 years before this tipping point happens, then I think a lot of people would benefit from that. But some people would say, oh, I don't even want to know, you know. Does that make sense, kind of?
Mhm. So,
Yeah.
Mark, you mentioned your Zoom that you do the third Thursday. How could our viewers get connected with that? Is that through the Digital Cornbread website, or how can they gain access to that?
You know, I don't know if I even have it on my website. I may not. Probably the best way is email me. Mark.Applegate, Applegate, at senioragemo.org, and it's the spell of the word senior, age like your age, mo like Missouri.org. Or you can call me. I don't mind giving my phone number out. I've talked to thousands of people about Alzheimer's. 417 area code 955-2513. I can send you the link. It's 4:30 on the third Tuesday of the month, Central Time. I'm thinking about opening another Zoom that's men only, kind of, because men have a little bit different caregiving roles sometimes and different challenges. But it's I get people from coasts, from Orleans. I've had all sorts of people on it, and it's very helpful to have a variety of thoughts.
Hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a terrible disease. If you haven't experienced it in your family yet in life, you will, because of the prevalence of it. There's 6.5 million people right now that have it. They're expecting maybe as high as 20, 25 million, and not too long from now. Missouri, in my state, has 125,000, I think, which is about very similar population to Springfield, which is where I'm in right now. You know, it's a awful lot of people.
Mhm.
It's a sad disease. It really is. It's one that's different than most, because it slowly just chips away. You know, and it's a roller coaster. That's what makes it. I mean, you might come in one day and see your loved one, and they're doing better that day, and kind of gives you hope. And then you come the next day, and they have their pants on their head or something, you know, and they're trying to get them on. I can't remember, you know, the basic things or whatever.
I used to work at an adult foster home as a chef, but our kitchen was open to the resident area. It was really a great situation, but um, we serviced mostly dementia Alzheimer's patients, and as a employee there, you could see, even though we knew that they didn't know who we were, just verbally communicating with them, having the music people come in, and the women getting their nails done or the getting their hair done. um, I can say that even if your parent or grandparent doesn't recognize who you are, it definitely, the residents who had people visiting on a regular basis, even though I'm sure it was painful for those people to visit, the recipient, that loved one, that grandma, that mom, that dad, it made all the difference in their day. Even though cognitively they may not have been able to share stories with people anymore, as someone who could witness the result of that visit, that tender touch, it's it really is so important for those people to still visit their family, even if it's painful.
Well, I can't agree with that enough. Excellent. It's as bad as it is, and as chipping away as it is. There's always good. There's always joy to be found. There's always, you just have to kind of let go of what used to be, and find joy in what the current version of your parent or your loved one is. You know, you have to kind of block that out as hard as it is. That's important to do that, because there is lots of fun that you're missing out on if all you do is worry about oh, she's got worse this week and this and that, you know, or he's worse, and instead just think, oh, you know, this week he recognized the song on the radio we listened to, you know, and um, yeah, keeping it positive is very, very important. In caregiving, it's very, very important too. instead of kind of quizzing them, like breaking out the picture, hey, do you remember who this is? Well, that doesn't do really them any good, because even if they can remember it, it's going to embarrass them if they can't. If it gets stressful to them and stuff like that. Instead of doing that, break out the picture book and with joy and say, hey, this is when we went to the creek. This is Uncle Joe, and this is, whatever.
Mhm.
Say it exclamatory and not in a question form, and it's there's all sorts of joy to be had with it. It's not as terrible as the disease it is. It's not the end. It's not hopelessness and stuff. There's lots of good to be had. So I
Mhm.
can't agree with that enough. Visiting a nursing home. My mom had 17 people in her, 17 ladies in her memory unit when she was in the memory unit, and 13 of them never had a single visitor the entire time I would go. I went 7 days a week for 2 years before COVID happened, and never knew they had a relative, at all. So it's extremely sad. Sometimes we'll just absolutely give up, and it is hard. But after you go a time or two, it really isn't as bad as you think, and it's very good for them,
Mhm.
and it's good for you too.
Yeah.
So maybe just as we get closer to the end of our show here, Mark, maybe just in a couple of minutes, as people will be gathering around and they'll be with their families, and some of these conversations are going to come up, and what are going to be some resources for those families, as they might be thinking, hey, we need to do something with mom or dad.
Absolutely, yeah. The primary thing probably is just starting off with talking to your primary care physician. But the two organizations you need to be familiar with are the Area Agency on Aging, which every community has some access to, and the Alzheimer's Association. Alzheimer's Association's website is alz.org, and the easiest way to kind of connect with them is their 1-800 number. If you go to that website, there's a 1-800 number on the top right. If I remember it rightly, I don't remember phone numbers anymore. None of us do, but I think it's 1-800-272-3900, if I remember right. Um, that number will get you through to, for one thing, it'll get you through to any person, a master's level clinician that will, if you have a weird question at 2 a.m., hey, my mom's wandering on the street, what do I do? Well, you call that number and that's going to get someone that's an expert. So 24/7. So very helpful number. The Area Agency on Aging is the organization that I work for. Actually, but there's every community's got their own, and they provide things to caregiver helps and stuff like that, respite and different things like that when they can. But yeah, the key is just getting it out in the open with getting it as best you can diagnosed, because some primary care physicians really won't diagnose very well. So because once you know, then you can start studying and researching, and you're not caught completely deer in the headlights like a lot of people, like we were, and like a lot of other people are too. So kind of if you have any doubts, ask about it. And at alz.org website, there's a 10 warning signs. You might look through that as well. That'll give you some tools to think, well, is this, because there's a lot of things that look like dementia that aren't. So it'll kind of give you some pre-screening things, is this and this happening? And yeah.
Kate, any final thoughts?
I mean, thank you so much, Mark, for sharing your story and your mom's story. I can definitely relate, just given my past experience where I've worked. And for those of our viewers who are local, Kevin Campschulte with Acticare, he's a guest we've had on the show before. His team will help you keep your mom or dad, your loved one, at home and aging in place as long as possible. So we do have those resources too. We can post those in the comments. Um, Mark will be praying for you this holiday season, because I feel like that's a hard time for everyone. So
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
So it was great to have you on with us today, Mark. And Mark also has an older brother and a younger sister, and so the three of them have been managing the care of their mom for, as he mentioned, almost 5 years. And so check out alz.org for more information about Alzheimer's. Also, you can connect with Mark through his blog at cornbread.com. And there you'll find lots of information about his journey with his mom. And as he mentioned, some great videos of her playing piano, which is kind of one of those things, right? It's like they say you never forget how to ride a bike, and so it's just kind of funny that that music is just deep in there, even when she wouldn't recognize you. But great to have you, Mark. I really appreciate coming on today, and we'll be joining live again next week, where we'll be talking about Thanksgiving. So, any parting thoughts, Kate?
See you all here next week, and thanks again, Mark. We appreciate it so much.
Yep, and we'll be with you in just a moment.